This is Evolving with Jessica Nguyen, brought to you by Sandstone.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to a new episode of Evolving with Jessica Nguyen. Today, I have a very special guest, not just any general counsel, but my bestie general counsel. And I will share a story about how Eric became my bestie shortly. But before I dive into the story of how Eric and I became besties, a little bit about Eric. Eric Dodson Greenberg is Executive Vice President, General Counsel, and Corporate Secretary of Cox Media Group and Apollo Portfolio Company. In 2025, well, actually, he just has won a lot of awards. So I'll just say, rather than list out the gazillion awards Eric has won, let's just say he has won a lot. And they're all well-deserved. But that's not why he's my bestie. He's my bestie because I actually claimed Eric as my bestie. He didn't actually get to choose me as his bestie.
It is reciprocal. It is absolutely reciprocal, but you're right. It was announced.
It was announced. I made it LinkedIn official, right, Eric?
You did.
The story is, I claimed Eric as my bestie after hearing his GC sidebar interview last year that he did with Paragon Legal. And what I knew from the moment Eric spoke was we just have a shared sense of humor and values that I have never seen in a person for, I don't know, a very long time. And actually, Eric, you know what story I'm going to bring up? Your story about the ship mortgage really resonated with me. For folks who are just having the pleasure of getting to know you today, like, tell us about that whole story with the ship mortgage.
So I started out, I was an associate at Covington and Burling. I started as a litigator. I did moot court. I'm a good talker. Everyone was like, you got to be a litigator. And I did not like it.
I know.
And so I was trying to find my way into something else. And I basically was kind of dipping my toe into corporate transactional work. And I got assigned to work on this bizarre case where this very wealthy South American family that had a banana business, I think there was a divorce or a sale because of a divorce. And the little piece of it that I got was to mark up the ship mortgage that the other side had sent as a draft. And I was at a point in my career where I knew what ships were and I knew what a mortgage was.
Yes.
I don't know that I knew what a ship mortgage was. This was a long time ago. So the assignment was take their ship mortgage, go to the library, pull out two different forms from the volume of forms. You can look up under S, ship mortgage. And what I was told, anything in the form, add it in to the draft. So I did that and I got out a pencil and I marked it up and I gave it to the partner. And he said, this is a good job. You don't have to keep inserting the words and sales, because there was a very old book. So he said, I don't think we need to cover the sales on the ship mortgage, but the rest of it's good. So I sent it over to the other side. He then very generously took me to a meeting with the other side so I could sort of observe. And it was a senior partner, a junior partner, and an associate, and the senior partner and me, my senior partner. And at some point there was a break. They had to resolve some issue and they both stepped away to call their clients. And so the rest of us were just sitting there. And the young partner on the other side said to me, well, should we just go over your ship mortgage? And I did not know what he really meant, because I was like, I copied this out of the form book. Like what I just like looked at it like, I don't know what there is to discuss. My markup is right. Because I didn't understand how it worked. And so I just kind of went, I was like, oh yeah, sure. So he takes it out and he's going through in real time. He's reading the markup and he's going through and I see him, And of course, most of it was not controversial. But he gets to some provision. I certainly don't remember what it was, but he got to it and he looked up and he said, I don't think we can agree to this.
Uh-oh.
And I looked at it and I, of course, had no idea what it meant because I just copied it out of a book. I didn't understand anything about it. And I had no idea what to say. So I chose to say the one thing I could say, which was, and I just looked at him and I said, all I can tell you is that language has been in every ship mortgage I've ever seen. And then I just stopped because I had nothing else to say.
And how did he respond?
And unbelievable. Well, first there was a long, awkward silence because I think he was waiting for me to elaborate or defend my point of view. And I had nothing else to say. And I just sat there. And he looked at it again and finally he said, well, I guess we can live with it. And the partners come back, the negotiation resumes, and the senior partner and I get in a cab and we're going back to the office. And he said, did anything happen while I was gone? And I said, yeah, we went over the ship mortgage. And he sort of goes ashen faced because he understood how little I knew. And he said, well, what happened? And I tell him the story exactly as I just did. And I saw like the look of recognition on his face. And I remember what he just looked at me and said, so what's your deal? And that was like, that was the moment where, and he was like a very tough partner. And that was sort of the moment like, we will make you a corporate lawyer, like.
Wait, that was a positive, what's your deal? That wasn't a negative, what's your deal?
No. It was like, who are you? Like, how did you think to do that? But, I was a little bit more senior. I'd done litigation for a few years. So I was being treated like a first year corporate associate, but I was like a fourth year associate and I'd worked for a couple of years. So I, was capable of improvise. I was capable of faking my way through a meeting. So that was his like, what is your deal?
Don't diminish or downplay your cleverness, Eric, because there are many mid-level, actually senior partners who are not as clever as you are. But yes.
Well, thank you.
But actually, I love that story because it actually reminds me too of one of what my partner is a lawyer as well. And we met in law school. He actually is just like, oh my gosh, he's like you. He's a great speaker and went the litigation path out of law school. He's no longer litigating. But one of the lines he put into a Valentine's Day card for me was, of all the people that I know in this world, you are definitely one of them. It's terrible. It's so bad. It made me laugh, and it reminded me of your story because you're like, you've only looked at one ship mortgage. Of course, that was a
two.
Oh, sorry.
I used two books, so there was. Yeah, I mean,
yes, and none of us.
Two.
Yeah, and it's templates.
Look, you're
we
always
all work
learning. One of the things I learned in doing litigation, particularly when you're a younger lawyer and you're taking a deposition against a more senior lawyer. Basically, there are not a lot of rules for depositions. You have to answer all the questions, blah, blah. And so the real technique, particularly senior lawyers use, is intimidation. And they try and kind of shame a younger lawyer or intimidate them, or there's a lot of bluster, and which is, I hated and why I wasn't a litigator. But flash forward, I'm part of a due diligence project where we go to this company, and it was the classic, like you're in a warehouse, boxes of documents, and we're going through it. And we basically found bad documents, which is its own story. But we found documents that suggested some legal liability. And I was not the most experienced lawyer. We had a lot of different lawyers, but they were all associates, and I was the most senior by age. And the general counsel of the company had someone get me, and I came to his office. He said, I'd like to talk with you, but we need to wait. I've asked two of the other lawyers here to join me. And I just instinctively thought, this guy's going to try and roll me. He's bringing witnesses, and he's trying to roll me. That's what's going to happen. And it's exactly what happened. And he said, your due diligence is over, and you and your colleagues need to pack up and leave. And I thought he was bluffing, but I mostly just knew, like, you're not going to roll me. And so I said, absolutely. I understand completely. I will have everyone leave as soon as the partner that I work for tells us we should go.
Mm-hmm.
He said, what are you talking about? I'm the general counsel of the company. I'm telling you to go. I said, oh, I totally get it. But I have to take my instructions from him. So if you want to call him, you should call him. And when he tells me to leave, we'll leave. And of course, he wasn't going to call the partner. And I sort of knew that. But I also thought, like, if that's what happens, that's fine. What do I care? I just am not going to let the guy roll me. He can roll my partner. And he just kept telling me that we had to leave. He said, "You don't understand. You need to leave."
What was it? What was his deal? Speaking
he
of
wanted the due diligence to end. That's what he wanted. We had found documents that showed that there was liability and it might kill the deal.
And it made him look bad.
Made him look bad. It made him look very bad. What we found, it's a pretty good story. They were being sued by someone for breach of contract. So we asked him, like, what's this lawsuit about? And he said, it's bullshit. There is no contract. I said, oh, well, that sounds like a bullshit claim. Okay. And I found a document from that company. I mean, this is like law school. It's a letter from an officer of the company to an officer of the other company that says, we accept your offer.
Oh, no.
So I was
there
like,
was offer acceptance and consideration.
I think they have a contract. And so I remember calling the partner, like, I don't think it's a bullshit claim. It never got memorialized, but like, there's not too many times in your career, as you know, Jessica, where you cite offer and acceptance as the prevailing legal theory of the issue. But there it was. And he was like, you guys need to leave. And I was like,
it had all the elements of a contract. Yeah. I still remember that from law school and bar exam.
So that was really interesting, but I remember just like, I think this guy's trying to intimidate me, and that's not going to be how it goes.
Well, you have many superpowers. Not only are you clever and can think on your feet, you can also just sniff out the BS and not let, someone.
My dad, may he rest in peace, used to say, don't bullshit a bullshitter. And that could be a line on my resume. Don't bullshit a bullshitter.
Your dad was a wise man, because actually my brother is a retired police detective. And people ask me, why is he? And he was a top performing police detective, solving the most cases for the past decade in Honolulu, where I grew up. And they're like, why is he so good at police detective work? And I said, because he probably should have been a criminal in another life, because he was such a troublemaker growing up. He didn't do well in school. All he did was get suspended and make trouble. And I was like, so he knows, again, a bullshitter knows when they're being they hear the bullshit, because
absolutely.
And just like a troublemaker knows how to catch a troublemaker, like my brother.
Yeah, 100%.
Yes. Well, speaking of law school and offer acceptance consideration, Eric, you may not know this, but this year is my 20th year out of law school.
Congratulations.
Yeah, I cannot believe it's been 2 decades. I like to believe that I don't look like I've been practicing law for 2 decades.
You do not. Put me down as a whatever column that goes in. Put me down. I agree. You have an excellent skincare routine.
I don't. It's called makeup and good filtering right now. Just kidding. Well, so it's been 20 years. And so I've been thinking a lot about my career because of this milestone, as well as a recent law school girls trip that I took last weekend, Eric, where we chatted earlier, folks. And I was telling Eric that what struck me was our conversations in law school were about law school gossip and America's Next Top Model. Does that age us the times? And then now we're talking about hormone replacement and perimenopausal symptoms, menopausal symptoms for some, as well as even retirement plans over the next few years, that decade or so. Eric, so this ties into career. I mean, as you reflect upon your career journey from the GOJ's office, big law, and now in-house, like what from each of those chapters did you take away or learn?
I would say I started out at Covington as an associate. I was a partner there. And I will say I probably came to big law with some skepticism about the training. I thought it was a shibboleth. It's just like, I think it's what shibboleth means. It's like a code word that people accept. And like, I felt like big law, it was like you were deemed to have gotten training. You didn't actually get it, but you were sort of regarded at. And I have to say, when I went to DOJ after Covington, and I remember having to do a presentation and just instinctively knowing how to put it together and how to put together, I put together a notebook with the legislative history, and it was highlighted. And of course, because you're in the government, I'm sitting on the floor, highlighting and making my own copies and tabbing things myself. But I think I knew what excellent legal work looked like. And that's what I took from that. And DOJ, a similar thing. I mean, I remember I was asked to work on something that the White House had asked about, and it didn't seem at all plausible that you could do it. And I said that to my boss. I was like, well, they don't think we can do this, do they? And she said, I don't know what they think. I tend to agree with you that it's probably not likely, but we owe it to them to do the most thorough job possible, because if the answer is no, it needs to be decidedly no, because we thought about it. And ultimately, I came up with a theory that the answer is yes, and there was a way to do it. And I think that was a big takeaway for me from that experience, that you owe your client just a level of care. And it's not, we talk about zealous advocacy, but there's also sort of zealous analysis, and it has to be true and accurate, but you owe it to really kind of challenge the premise and rethink the issue, which is sort of what we did. And I think that's something that's carried me through a lot, is the willingness to not even accept the conventional framework and to kind of look behind that. And that's something that I got from that experience. And not to belabor it, I think what I learned elsewhere was the value of relationships. And, as I was trying to grow my practice, and I went to Paul Hastings to expand it, I developed relationships with bankers, with people in media. And I think, I had lunch with someone last week at a very prominent firm. And I know someone who told me he's the most successful partner at that firm. And I knew him as a younger lawyer. And I asked him, like, I hear you're really successful. And he sort of smiled. What's his secret? He said his secret was what I told him when he made partner. And he said, do you remember this? And I said, I remember us having lunch, but no. And he said, you told me it's all relationships, and that, legal excellence is a given, but it's all about developing relationships with people. And I think that's a big part of what I learned kind of in the second half of my career. And as I grew it, and I think, legal excellence and it's hugely important, but if it's not coupled with relationships, it's not enough.
I love that. And I think it's hard to really conceptualize that and make that concrete when you are new to your career, that it's all about relationships. But that's so true, though. I love that.
Look at you. I mean, how many of us have later in our career incredibly important relationships with people we knew a long time ago, who, by the way, often go on to be very important people. So I clerked in the district court in Washington, and we had just this incredible cohort of law clerks for all the different, I had one co-clerk, but in the courthouse of the district court, there are, 20 of us, and we're incredibly close. That has proven to be a remarkable cohort of people in terms of high-level government positions, successful lawyers, people featured as and I think that's one of the things you need to note when you're a young lawyer. The joke is look to your right, look to your left, one of you won't be here. Well, actually, look to your right, look to your left. One or more of you may be really important people later in your career. And so the relationships matter from the beginning.
They should really say that. I think actually my orientation in law school, gosh, looking back 20 years, was look to your left, look to your right. One, they're not gonna be here. One will actually be likely be an alcoholic. They actually said that in 2003. Alcoholism is rampant in the legal profession. I was like, oh my goodness. And then also the competitive environment of
Yeah.
the curve, the curve system. So it wasn't a culture of community, it was a culture of competition. And
Yeah.
also, so I think that's the wrong advice to give in law. So I think it's look to your left and right.
Well, and I would say it's the
Yeah.
thing that makes you an alcoholic. It's the sense of isolation.
Yeah.
And who wants that? And in fact, when I was at DOJ, we worked on really important issues, and you'd go to your office and you'd kind of think really hard and write a long memo. And I found it very isolating. As much as the work was fascinating, that was one thing I learned, was like that I love ideas, but sitting in my office thinking big thoughts is not what makes me happy. And I think and it's one of the things I've tried to create as a GC, is a sense of purpose and a sense of shared purpose, of shared enterprise. And I think when you're in-house, you not only can have that with your team, but also with the broader enterprise. And I think that is a real antidote to that sense of isolation, that you're doing something bigger and you're doing it with other people, and that the synergy of your work together is better than anything you could do yourself. And I feel strongly about that. And I feel strongly it applies to me, that, I feel like I have a lot of good ideas and good judgment. They're not all good ideas. In fact, I will tell you, when I first became GC, I met with every law firm that we work with. And obviously there was work to do that, we're having meetings about real issues. And every point that I made was brilliant. And the feedback from our outside counsel was incredibly affirming. And I remember, and this perhaps says as much about me as anything else, like Wednesday of that week, I was like, man, I am killing it. Like, I am just killing it in this job. One
Love
insight after the other. And then by Friday, I was like, oh, I see what's happening. My bullshit detector did go off. And I said to my wife, I was like, I hate this. Everything I say, the outside counsel treat it like it's brilliant. And my wife said, well, that sounds rather pleasant to me. What are you complaining about? And I said, no. I said, I hate it, because I do have good ideas. And now I can't tell which ones are good ideas, because they're treating all of them like good ideas. And that's like a huge part of my, strategic, creative thought process, is you got to test ideas and challenge them. And in fact, I try to, like, here's my idea and here are the 5 problems with it, so that you're giving people permission to offer imperfect ideas and to critique your ideas. And I really just initially it was quite nice, and I obviously internalized it in a very favorable way, but I quickly realized, oh, this is total bullshit, and they're just being sycophants, and that's not, I don't need that. I don't need outside counsel making me feel good. I need a collaboration. And honestly, when we've done that, it's been some of the most exciting, invigorating work, and has produced great outcomes. But it doesn't start with saying yes. It starts with, well, there's a kernel of a good idea there, but here's where we need to go.
But I get it, though. If I'm outside counsel, you're paying my bills. I don't want to offend you. And this also doesn't just apply to outside counsel. Also, your direct reports who are more junior than you, or more junior employees cross-functionally. It can be really intimidating, Eric, to push back on a general counsel. So I get
I'm
it.
very mindful of that. And I've tried, look, and I appreciate, like, this, whatever this may be, it can be intimidating for people. It goes with the title, and there's experience that goes with it. And I was at a big law firm, and people attach all this stuff to it. And I think part of my job is to dismantle that as quickly as possible. And to say, like, I have this idea, here's what's wrong with it, or it's kind of clunky. And I think you have to give people permission to participate in that process. And I'll say, certainly in the law firm environment, some more than others, I've been in rooms where you sat in a stultifying silence because everyone was terrified of giving an A- answer in an environment that only accepted A+ answers. and that gets you nowhere fast. And so you really have to create an environment where people feel like they're being invited in to offer something that doesn't have to be perfect. And then also to sense the excitement of creating something together that's better. And I think that's really a lot of fun. But I also appreciate, like, it can be intimidating. I certainly can be intense. And so it sort of behooves me to sort of laugh at myself, to critique myself, to create an environment where frankly people feel, I mean, safe space is sort of gotten overused and taken on all sorts of baggage, but you do want to create an environment where people feel like they can offer an idea that's not perfect or critique the boss's idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I would say some of the best stuff that we've done that I'm so proud of, it bears very little resemblance to where we started, but there was a nugget of a really good idea there. It just evolved, to coin a phrase, Jessica. It evolved into something much bigger and better because of that process.
Well, kudos to you for building that culture of collaboration that I think a lot of teams, I worked at a lot of different companies, Eric, and that actually, there's a lot of culture of people not actually wanting to tell the truth or their opinion, even amongst senior leaders.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've seen it as well.
I do. I mean, I think, and look, it creates compliance risk. It creates a lot of problems. I'm mindful of that. I'm most mindful of, I think, what you can get out of people when I think it's important that the process of idea creation is as satisfying as the outcome it produces. Because otherwise you're feeling immense pressure only, like you either get to that outcome or you don't, and everything rides on that. And you certainly have deferred your satisfaction until that point. And I love that process of brainstorming and of ideas. And not everybody does. And you have to have a high tolerance for ambiguity. But I think we're in the business of ambiguity. And I appreciate we're in the business of ambiguity where our clients often want certainty.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the way you get from uncertainty to clarity, never certainty, but clarity, is through a process of testing and refutation and refinement. And I happen to also find that great fun and intellectually challenging, but I think it also produces superior outcomes.
For someone who is junior, or so let's just say, pretend, I know we made a joke earlier that it's hard to believe I've been practicing law for 20 years, but you can imagine even how hard it was for me to just establish credibility. People
Sure.
take me seriously. So sometimes I used to worry, and I don't worry anymore. You can probably tell that I don't care anymore, Eric, but I used to worry earlier in my
Sure.
career that if I didn't give the A+ answer, if I were to challenge someone's idea, I'm already overcoming an unconscious bias that someone's looking at me and saying, she's 18 years old, she's really inexperienced. What does Jessica know? There's a lot of folks in my shoes that feel that insecurity, and which could be true or not true. Any tips for those folks like me? Because not all of us have wonderful leaders like you that invite that, give permission to push back and challenge you.
And also let me acknowledge, I understand that when I walk into a room, by and large, people assume I do know what I'm talking about. I mean, and that is a privilege. And I certainly lean into, I'll wear a sport coat, because that, I'm very aware of that, and not everybody has that. And certainly there are lots of people who, for, all sorts of different reasons, including, obviously gender and race and ethnicity, but also personal affect or neurodiversity. And I'm the father of a neurodiverse kid, and who presents is super smart, but presents differently. And I happen to think we live in a world where the Myers-Briggs test has made us settle on a certain range of personalities, that's what is good in an interview. And it's not what makes you successful. It makes you good in interviews, because HR has sort of decided, or we as a culture have decided. So I certainly am mindful of that. And those are very, very real things. But I also think speaking with confidence and conviction and coming with a well thought out idea, my colleague, I've told this story with her, my colleague, Letitia Haynes Frazier, who's our multiple award-winning head of legal ops. She is a leader in legal ops and is a giant in the field. When I started, we had a meeting. I don't remember what it was about, but she came to the meeting, and I don't know what prompted me to say this, but I said, Letitia, I don't think you're prepared for this meeting. She was very taken aback and said, I have a pen and pad. And I said, let me explain what I mean by being prepared for a meeting. And yes, I did empower her by saying, I expect you to come with a fully developed idea that you will articulate and that you're prepared to brainstorm with me about, because I will push back. I will ask questions. We will shift. But I think doing the homework at the end of the day, and I'm mindful, it takes more for other people. And I've seen that I've been in meetings where people have assumed my female partner was a paralegal or a secretary, and it's been shocking to me. And so I've seen it. But I also think at the end of the day, the best idea wins. And there's an opportunity to come in and believe in your idea, to be flexible, and because again, it's this process of testing. But I think when we need to be absolutely right and put our identities on being absolutely right, we become very brittle, both in our thinking and in our self-identity. It becomes fragile. The brittleness is fragility. And I think, but if you come in with nothing, it's not worth anything. And I think you have to come in believing in yourself and having an idea, and or being prepared to offer one, and to not. I think the challenge is, and I think law school promotes this in a way that's very unhealthy, that our identity is tied to our answer, and it's not. And I get it. When I give a great answer, it feels good. And when someone disagrees with me, it doesn't always feel good. But, there's a video of somebody who takes a $20 bill and crumples it up and steps on it and makes the point that it was always worth $20 in all of those circumstances. And I think that's something for us to internalize, that our qualities as a lawyer or as an advisor or as an executive, whatever it may be, or of a junior, is not necessarily wrapped up. And I certainly have a career that riddled with mistakes. I mean, as a young litigator, was asked to put together documents that we would produce. And I pulled all of the documents together and I gave them to the partner, because he said, I want to look at them before they go out. And he said to me, I don't know what made him ask this, but thank God he did. He said, do you have copies of all of these documents? And I said, well, yeah, I mean, they're copies of these documents and all of the files I got them from. He said, no. We need to have an identical pile of documents to the one we're sending out. And in fact, they need to be numbered. They need to be bait stamped. And I said, what's a bait stamp? And he explained to me what a bait stamp was. And I was like, wow, that's a good idea. Bait stamp. Tell Bates. He was really thinking.
That's a great idea, yes.
But what I remember is the partner chuckled and I was embarrassed. And I said, why are you laughing? And he said, I'm just laughing at that you forget what people don't know until you tell them. And there was an incredibly generous response, because I was prepared to send out 1,000 documents without us having any I mean, how stupid. On the other hand, I don't know, nobody told me.
But you don't know what you don't know.
But it felt bad in the moment, make no mistake. As generous as he was, it felt bad. And I remember telling a mentor of mine about it, and I said, he didn't say it was okay. He's like, he didn't say, don't worry about it, it's okay. And she said, well, it's not. But that's also why the partner reviewed it before it went out. Like, the process worked. Wasn't okay.
Yeah.
But it's okay that it's not okay. And I think it's important to not, I guess the thing I think about, Jessica, is that we live our lives like day traders, but life is really a long-term investment. And so if you think about it, I don't do a lot of stock market stuff, but if you ever look at somebody's stock and you click on it, and there's just this insane volatility, and it's that day's trading, and you click the little minus button to go out a week, and it's still very volatile, and you go back a month, and eventually you click back to the 5-year, there's a very clear trend. And our careers are like that. They're very clear trends, but we live them like day traders, where all we experience is that volatility. We come home and say, this was an insane day. Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
But the trajectory hasn't changed. And I think that's a real challenge. And obviously, the further you are in your career and you're able to discern that by looking back, that's a very different thing than living it and thinking it will be true. And I appreciate that distinction, but that is something I would want to impart to people, is there is a very discernible trajectory, and the day trading piece is a very minor piece. Don't be a day trader.
Don't be a trade. That's great advice.
Probably good advice, period. You just splice it right there. Greenberg says, don't be a day trader.
That's it. Episode's over. The advice is, Eric said, don't become a day trader. Well, I mean, actually, Eric, that's a great point. That when I think about over the past 20 years, and you and I both know, I'm on LinkedIn a lot, and I look over the careers of folks who, where are they doing now 20 years later? The folks that I actually think are the most successful are not necessarily the ones who were top of the class or editor-in-chief of Law Review, but honestly just really good with people and really good at maintaining and building and nurturing relationships, which ties into your advice too. It's all about relationships, the legal
I think
world.
That's right. I would also add to that tenacity. I mean, I think, and you just have to stick with it. My son, one of his superpowers is stick-to-itiveness, which I think we've now come to appreciate is a key element of success, is just sticking to it. And I think one of the things that sustains us in sticking to it is our relationships with other people. And I think that's, going back to like what we're saying about the isolation of the job and of the law. Those relationships are a great way to succeed. They're also a great way to preserve yourself and nurture yourself in the hard times.
So I have to ask, what is your son doing now? He's
in business school. He's finishing his first year of business school at the University of Rochester.
Oh, and what does he want to be when he grows up?
He is focused in pricing, and that largely exhausts my expertise in the subject. He's a math guy. He's very quantitative. I'm a word guy. So he got that from his mother. So he's really interested in the kind of the science of pricing, which, it
is a science, as someone who's worked at
from the Strait of Hormuz to, coffee beans. It's it's a big deal. So
it is.
I think he discovered it on his own. So God bless.
What a niche. Well, I can always say pricing is really hard, as someone who's worked at many tech companies and thinking about pricing models and structure.
Yeah.
And that evolves too, because even in tech, it used to be all about seats, and now it's evolving to usage. And I'm like, What? I need to talk to your son. He can teach me a thing or two.
Well, and I do. I mean, this better than anybody. And legal pricing is becoming, one of the most crucial functions. And I had very positive experiences as pricing. When I started out, it was some senior partner with a legal pad who'd be like, well, 10% seems okay. Now there are algorithms and math stuff, but it's really a science to figure out. And obviously with disruption, like companies like yours are doing, the model is all the things that go into it are being tested and changed. So I think pricing is probably one of the most volatile aspects of the legal market right now as a result of how much technological change there is.
So that's a great segue into a little thing called AI. I think for my entire career, even the past 2 decades, clients like us have been complaining about the billable hourly model, that it just incentives are not aligned with in-house clients, right? We have fixed budgets, and outside counsel law firms are incentivized to bill as much as they can. Like, are you seeing the law firm model evolve or change in this AI era yet? What are
Not
your
yet.
predictions here? I know you're a prediction type of guy, and
I have not seen it. I hear people talking about it. I think the billable hour is going to continue to be very durable. People talk about like Twinkies will remain fresh through a nuclear winter. I think the billable hour is sort of the Twinkie of the legal market. It has a lot
that's
of
the quote of the
preservatives.
day. The
It has a lot
billable
of
hour is
preservatives
the
in it.
Twinkie.
The thing that I see that I think is the dirty little secret amongst people on our side of the table is that there are a lot of people who are afraid to value legal work any other way. So as much as everything you say is true, the incentives are misaligned. It is an incredibly blunt instrument. How long something takes is the measure of its value. It's not true. I mean, it's like us and carpenters, I think, are the only ones being paid like that. And it's probably a good measure for carpentry. I'm not sure it is for law, but I've seen a lot of GCs, when you really are pushed, say, but I don't have any other way to know whether I'm overspending or underspending, So the truth is, people on our side of the table are also afraid of alternative legal, arrangements, because they're afraid that they're spending more. Obviously, the law firms are afraid too. When I was in private practice, I worked on a flat fee matter with a client, and the relationship partner said to me, "We lost money on this last month." And I said, "Really? Lost money? Like the amount they paid us was less than our cost of electricity and legal pads and
Operation
pens?"
costs, yeah.
And he's like, "Well, no." I said, "You mean that if we had billed the same amount of time at full rates, we would have made more money than we did on the flat fee?" Well, that's opportunity cost. That's not a loss. And it's only opportunity cost if you were going to bill all of that time at full rates. So yeah, law firms need to decide what their inventory is. And that's a complicated problem that probably people like my son can figure out, not me. But I think it reflects both sides are reluctant to find another measure of value. And it's not that I think we all understand its flaws, but it's the one that we understand and accept. And I think people are going to be reluctant to give that up. What I think is key and what I'm focused on is trying to decouple what I've called the movie theater economics of law firms, where they bundle the star partner with 6 associates. And the movie theaters draw you in, charge you a handsome amount for a movie ticket, but they make their money selling popcorn and soda at a huge markup. And that's true for law firms. They have name partners that draw you in with their expertise and judgment and strategic thinking, and they make their money staffing it with a bunch of associates where there's a huge markup. And they make a lot of money doing that. What I think AI has the potential to do is take the kind of analytical work that the associates do, issues lists, due diligence, document review, NDAs, hive that off from the service offering to do it faster, cheaper, perhaps more accurately. And I think we are still going to always want that star partner with the deep expertise and strategic judgment. I think you're going to want it for the kind of thought partnership that I was describing earlier, of How do we do this? How do we develop this idea? How do we develop this strategy? And I think there's a world where we may be willing to pay that partner even more than we do today. Somebody, I think somebody's getting $4,000 an hour and people are shocked and horrified. I could see a world where we pay even more per hour for that expertise if it is decoupled with the 6 associates who, I read the bill, they're like, talking to each other about they're not supervised, I think law firms don't understand. We read the bills and the time entries are all put together. So it's like, hi, first year associate, didn't know what to do, called third year associate. And the next entry is third year associate, got a call from first year associate, didn't know the answer, called sixth year associate. Sixth year associate is, I confirmed what I thought might be the answer with the partner. And partner often doesn't even bill time in it, God bless. But you've got this whole array of entries of people trying to figure out what they're going to do. I think the Sandstones of the world are going, among other things, take that work and move it to a more cost-efficient model. But I think you're still going to want to talk to that partner. And the pricing for that may need to be changed to probably a truer expression of its value. But right now, its value is being kind of commingled with the associate piece because on the whole, that's a bigger profit margin.
Right.
So
right.
I think that's my prediction. That's the piece that's going to change.
Well, in the partner's defense, even though they're making a boatload of money, is that they don't scale. They need bodies to do the work for that partner.
Unless they price it higher, right?
Oh, but they want as much work as possible. They want to take on as much work and to make as much money as possible.
That's a different. That's a different.
So, Eric, look, I agree with you. I still pay. I do a lot of work with AI, of course, and then I still put a human touch and eyes into everything that I do.
Sure.
Before it goes, especially legal work, because we're in the business of getting things right, not as we, that's what our judgment, accountability, that is our role.
Mm-hmm.
But I do worry, though, about that future prediction, Eric. It's like what you described in that hilarious string of billable entries is those are associates learning through collaboration and trial and error that you and I are paying for the law firm. If we take that away, what's going to happen to learning? And
I'm actually really optimistic about this. And I actually think the model I described does not reflect people learning. I think it reflects people trying to find a black cat in a dark room and feel their way around and yelling Marco Polo to each other. What I envision is, I think there will be fewer associates because of the model that we talked about. But I envision a world where associates are using AI to come up with patterns, theories, potential arguments, insights, conflicts, contradictions in documents, in borrowing this huge, vast knowledge base that law firms have, and taking it to the partner and saying, here's what I came up with. And the partner saying, that's interesting, but what about this? And here's the example that I have in mind. Lawyer I know went to trial. They used AI. The transcripts in real time went through AI. The depositions are in AI. Everything's in AI. It's a healthcare fraud case. And the AI said, you should argue that the sales reps did not understand the law. And the lawyer said that is not a very good argument because being ignorant of the law is not a good defense. And it opens us up to the argument that they just did whatever they needed to do to get a sale. And they didn't make that argument. And the jury hung, and 4 jurors hung in their favor, which is very unusual. And they interviewed those 4 jurors, and to a person, each one said, these sales reps just didn't know what the law was. They didn't know what they were doing was wrong. And the thing that, Jessica, I love about that story is it's both vivid and ambiguous at the same time. It's vivid that the AI was right, that pattern, that there was a narrative that came out of the facts of this case.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think any of us, and you were nodding along, are so sure that the lawyers made a mistake by not making that argument. And the reason why I share that story is the conversation between the junior lawyer who does that and says, here's what Claude says, here's what Sandstone says, and the partner saying, that's interesting, I think it's too risky, we shouldn't do it. That is a pure learning experience that I think would make anybody a better lawyer. And I think we may be a little overly nostalgic about the kind of mentoring that was going on before or wasn't. And I think that AI actually presents a tremendous opportunity for junior and senior lawyers to be partnering, and for junior lawyers to be sort of the conductor of the vast potential of AI insight, which is, I think, ultimately its greatest potential, and senior lawyers to be the filter and applying judgment and experience to what that produces. And that mix is, I think, a real recipe for great training. And that's why I'm optimistic.
You're right. Those moments were what I valued when I was a junior associate or junior lawyer, was getting those nuggets of, hey, you've been doing this a lot longer than me. What have you seen in the world? Is this a good idea or not? Versus look for, doc review, look for that smoking gun email or doc contract. That wasn't that great of training. No one misses that work.
Nobody misses that work. And I think because we all did it and we seem to have turned out okay, we sort of reverse engineer like, oh, it was because of that time in the warehouse. No, it wasn't. There's certain things we learn. I mean, you and I do deals. I think the process of working on schedules for a deal is a great learning experience. And I think it's a great way to introduce a junior lawyer into the deal process. I think something will be lost if that starts to be done by AI. It'll save money. I think it is a loss of a good learning experience. But I also think new, better learning experiences will be created, and it'll be a net positive.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they're going to be, I think a lot of junior associates, though there'll be less of them, will have more of the opportunity to learn the why, because there's just more headspace for it and time for it. So I love that lemonade positive outlook, Eric. You're such a, I'm a bubbly person. Yeah.
Well, I'm excited about, I think the efficiency stuff, I think right now we're all looking we're looking at AI for speed, and clearly it's doing stuff faster. But I think its ultimate value is going to be giving strategic insight and allowing us, I was talking about before, how do you test a premise? How do you reframe an issue? How do you reframe a framework for negotiating or for or how do you do the pricing on something? I think AI is going to be a tremendous aid in thinking strategically and more richly. I think the fast part we're going to get used to real fast. I was one of the people that ran to FedEx at 7:55 to get the document there before they closed. And now you can just send a PDF at 11:59.
I know.
I think the world is better as a result of that, but I don't think we spend a lot of time talking about it. Wow. I mean, God help if I was like, back in my day, we had to FedEx. I think a lot of the speed stuff with AI is going to just get built in, and it's going to become table stakes, and that's good. But the real value, and I think the thing that's going to make us better lawyers, is the strategic piece. Are our lives better that you can file a brief electronically at 11:59 rather than FedExing it the day before to local counsel who goes to the courthouse? Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
But I don't know that it's made us better lawyers per se. It's just, some would say it's just allowed us more time to edit the document and God knows what. But that's what excites me about AI, is the strategic value, the thought partnership.
That was so fun to have a little chat about future predictions of the legal profession in an AI world. Because I also love your story about what you do every New Year's Eve with your friends. Can you share, folks, what you do there?
We write down predictions for the coming year. and you have to say them aloud. Someone's like the secretary of the meeting and writes them down, and then it gets folded up and sealed, and we sign our initials on it as if, it's some official document. And then we open the one from the prior year and read them aloud. And it's quite funny. And of course, no one remembers their predictions from the year.
No, I would not remember
at all. And they range from, like poignant hopes to, illusory hopes like the Mets winning the World Series to, your kid getting a job or married or this or that. So it's really wonderful.
What are your favorites? Your favorite predictions so far in the past?
Well, I think I mentioned to you, my wife predicted Matt Lauer would be fired 2 years before he was fired.
Oh
so,
my God.
She didn't even get credit for that because when we opened it the next year, he was still just fine. So, we had to make some special dispensation for that. So that's the most memorable one.
Is there an award? I'm a very competitive person, Eric. Was there an award for a prediction actually coming true?
They're just the admiration of your peers, as
Okay,
is so often the case in life.
Bragging rights is the award. No,
exactly.
Look,
we're still talking about it. I mean, that's something. So.
Oh yes. Well, folks, if
can I say something? I want to say something about you.
About me?
Because I think your joining Sandstone is a major development in this space. Mary O'Carroll as well. One of the things that I've seen is the technology is advancing a lot, but I think the people doing the tech have not always had a strong feel for how we work as lawyers.
Mm-mm.
And they sort of understand we're in the words and document business, and they have word and document technology, and there's a very natural fit. But I think there's been a huge gap. And I think we're moving from a place where it's about technology to it becoming about anthropology and understanding how lawyers work, whether it's the law firm environment or the in-house environment. And I think that was my reaction when you shared that you were going to Sandstone, is how smart are they? I think you made a smart move too, but how smart is Nick and Sandstone to understand that you need this glue, this ambassador who understands the tech, and you've been one of the leading tech lawyers, but you've also been just one of the leading in-house lawyers, period. And I think it is a great, and I see other companies doing it as well. Your competitors are starting to do it. I think that is a great thing for the legal profession, that we're moving from great tech to understanding how the tech needs to work, how we work, how we could potentially roll it out beyond legal. I'm a big believer that legal tech is enterprise tech.
Yes.
And I think people like you are going to be crucial as the coders to doing that. So I think it's great for the profession that you're in this role.
Oh, thanks, Eric. Folks, I did not pay Eric
You
to say
did not.
that.
That was impromptu.
That was impromptu. But I agree with you. I've worked at a lot of tech companies, Eric, and I do see that huge gap between the builders, the coders, from the actual intended user of the product. And we're seeing that with a lot of tech companies, and especially legal tech companies, where sure, maybe one of the founders practiced law for a hot minute,
Right.
or went to law school and then called it, I am a seasoned lawyer.
Yeah.
No. You and I just talked about that.
Come to the meeting and tell me that person who spent 20 minutes at a law firm is like your lawyer on site,
Yes.
I do think, though, I think we're on the cusp of the golden age of legal ops, because legal ops really plays this crucial role as a conduit between the in-house team, the lawyers, and our vendors, and more than ever, the AI technology companies. And I think that has the potential. A forward-looking GC partnered with a great legal ops person, I think, is the key to AI adoption. And I think the same types of skills that have made you crucial at Sandstone, but crucial to making the technology work better, is also why great legal ops people are going to be crucial to the success of their in-house departments.
Well, Eric, you've adopted that at Cox Media Group, the having a
I'm
great
very
partnership with
proud
legal
of
ops.
it. And it wasn't a plan, but it happened really organically. But look, we had to make some headcount cuts a couple of years ago. And I called Letitia Haynes-Frazier, our head of legal ops, and I said, Letitia, I think there may be an AI solution to some of this headcount loss that we have to do. And I've now exhausted my knowledge of the subject. I basically knew that my inbox and my LinkedIn inbox were filled with people with go-to-market in their title.
Yeah.
And AI at the end of their email address. And that's
I
all
get
I
that
knew.
too. I know.
And that's why I said, could you go figure this out?
Yes.
And so, look, I don't have the expertise or the disposition to do that. She came back having curated a lot of the offerings. And then we sat down, we did a couple of demos, and we asked some hard questions and had some good ideas. And that's what set us down this road. And I think that partnership leverages the GC's time and expertise. They're also better equipped, I think, to be dealing with the technology company and acting as, frankly, as an ambassador between the in-house team and the tech vendor. And it has been really, really successful.
Well, frankly, you and I as attorneys, those are not our superpowers. Vetting vendor tools, creating all the project plans and implementing those tools and whatnot. That's a very different set of skills.
I take notes with a leather notebook and a pen. So I think you can be an AI leader. I said to someone, the addressable market in law for AI tools and leather notebooks will coexist and remain big. There's no threat to the leather notebook business, nor does that depress the opportunity for AI tech. This is who we are. And I think there is room for the analog and the digital. And and I think in many ways, the use of AI that you and I have been talking about, I think reflects the great power of the liberal arts grad. I think we're moving from a period when, you should study computer science. And of course, I think people are very worried that AI is going to eliminate that need. If AI can code, I think there's real value in critical thinking and thinking by analogy, in having a cross-disciplinary and interdisciplinary fluency. And that's what the liberal arts teach. So I think the best users of AI are going to be the people that read the most and are the most curious and are the most eclectic in their thinking, because that's how you'll make the best use out of AI. It's no longer about the best code. It's about the best user with the best prompts, and then using those prompts. It's not treating the output as a conclusion to be adopted. It's an insight to be metabolized by our judgment and our experience. And the people who can do that best are going to leverage AI the most.
And that's not just liberal arts majors. That's a lot of attorneys you just described.
Look, I think good at that. I mean, that's one of the things I miss about working in a law firm. Somebody was asking me this the other day. I said, you work at a law firm, you work with a lot of really smart people that read books and are up on current events and go to the theater.
Yes.
They're really interesting people who have a lot of interests. And I think that's part of what will make us so effective. We will have meetings with our outside counsel and brainstorm, and it'll be a 1-hour meeting where in the last 5 minutes, we come up with the crystalline, like, that's it. And I think two things. One, that is not a 0.1 meeting with 0.9 of wasted time. It is a 1-hour meeting with 0.9 of lead up that was essential to the idea. And the second piece of it is, someone asked me, like, well, how do you create an environment where you do that? And I said, first, you keep the non-lawyers out of the meeting, because they have no tolerance for that process. And obviously I'm
Mm.
overgeneralizing, but I think lawyers, we have a great comfort with ambiguity. And you have to be comfortable with that ambiguity and have confidence that we're going to get to an answer at the end of this. And I
Mhm,
think
mhm.
you then get to the answer, then you meet with the business people and say, we figured it out. And they don't need to know how the sausage was made.
They don't need
They
to
don't
know.
need
They
they
don't need
don't
to
need to
know.
know about the 0.9. They just need the 0.1. Like, here's what we should do. We figured it out.
And that's all they
And
care about too. They just want the answer.
they just want
Yeah.
the answer. And I think we love the process.
Yes.
And I think that's okay.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
obviously that becomes a slippery slope with the billable hour. But fundamentally, I think that's what we do as lawyers. And I think it's in many ways, I think learning, being trained as a lawyer is a skeleton key to the world. And I don't know anyone, myself included, who hasn't had to be a health advocate for a family member in the hospital who's a lawyer and not felt that their legal training was indispensable to their healthcare advocacy. Not because they're like, oh, that's malpractice, or I think that's a tort. No, it's that you have the ability to discern what the logical steps are, to spot the material issue, to ask questions and become conversant in subject matter that you are not expert in, even though the other
Mhm,
person
mhm.
is. That's what we're trained to do. And it makes us great health advocates. I think it makes us great architects of new ideas and strategic thinkers. I think AI is going to enable us to do that even more. And I think legal practice is going to become more interesting, not less.
Absolutely. I get to dabble in a lot of different areas of law with AI and learn a lot more.
Yeah.
Um, well, bestie, we are running low on time. I do want to end the show with a fun little segment. Speaking of AI, of what would you have if AI could do anything in the world for you?
Hmm.
What would you wish AI could take off your plate? Ooh.
There's not, I don't think there's a lot that I don't really think of it as taking things off my plate as much as I think of it as helping me do things I couldn't do or to do things better. So I've been
Yeah, yeah.
using AI a lot this last year to learn about modern art. Um, and
Oh.
I talk to ChatGPT about art all the time.
Yeah, yeah.
And and if I go to a museum, I'll take pictures of paintings I like and go home and ask ChatGPT about it. A lot of my writing, a lot of the ideation that leads to an article is through conversations with
Oh, I
AI.
love
So
that.
I really love, I think it's enabled my own curiosity.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so to be honest, whereas I might used to wind down watching TV, some stupid show, I often wind down talking to ChatGPT about art or like, what's the deal with giraffes? What's with the horns?
Well, that's such an
You know,
eloquent, positive way. I was thinking my answer was very simplistic. I have a poster in my laundry room at home that for the past 6 years it says, "Alexa, do the laundry." She still doesn't do the laundry, by the way,
I
Alexa.
don't
She's
like
been quite the
cooking. I have
disappointment.
to cook for my wife and I don't like it at
Wait,
all.
you're in charge of cooking?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
But
I like
it's prepared. Like, I heat things up, just so we're clear.
Well, no, I was gonna say, one, yes, I'm impressed that you cook, Eric, but I love your wife, by the way, not only could she predict the Matt Lauer incident, she's got the strongest BS meter of all of humankind, but also
She,
she has
she
delegated
does.
to you the cooking task. Look at her being a little boss.
Yeah, she has a good bullshit detector. I will tell you, I use Claude and it has the little chats, and it'll sometimes the chat gets too filled up and starts to slow down. You got to start a new chat. And I don't want to lose the learning from the
Mhm,
prior
mhm.
chat. So and this is very lawyerly, I will say, Claude, can you create a transition memo for the new Claude? Tell it what
Yes.
it needs to know about working with me. And one of the things that it said in the transition memo, it's very weird to see like somebody write a memo about what it's like to work with you. Um, and it said essentially, sometimes Eric will just say like, what the is his deal? Or this is the stupidest idea I've ever heard. And Claude says he's just venting. He's not asking for your analysis. You should just politely agree and move on.
Wait, gosh, who knew AI was such good with people skills?
I copied and I sent it to my team. And I said, this just seems like good advice for everyone. The punchline is I shared that with my wife, who was flabbergasted because she doesn't really use AI. She was flabbergasted. And at some point I was like, damn it, why did this happen? And she said, I said, wait, are you just politely agreeing with me and moving on? She said, So both Claude and my wife know what they're doing.
They know you really well, Eric, is what I gathered from that.
Yes.
Well, I am so honored that I've gotten to know you too, bestie. And that
I am honored to be your bestie. I'm honored to be episode 1. It's a lot of responsibility.
Yes. So much expectations, but here's what I know is that guests will love hearing from you and learning about you. If folks want to connect with you further, where can they find you?
You can find me on LinkedIn, and I love connecting with people on LinkedIn. You and I think, still have not met in person.
Not yet. We need to change that. We're going to make that happen in 2026.
Yeah. But I think it's a great reflection of the opportunities to connect with people. You and I had a video call after when I found out we were besties. So,
you're like, she told me we're besties. I'm a leader.
Yeah. So yeah, LinkedIn.
All right. Well, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Jess.
Thanks for listening to Evolving with Jessica Nguyen, brought to you by Sandstone. To keep up with every episode, subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.